Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu.
All right, I hope you are all well. It's good to have a nice group out there online. So we are now breaking down the Four Noble Truths, but in 16 attributes, because, four is just not enough. So in this case, really breaking down the qualities of these Four Noble Truths, each in four different attributes. The thing that's important to remember when we talk about Buddhism in any way, shape, or form is the foundation of all Buddhist paths are the Four Noble Truths. I mean, that's the whole deal right there. And it's the first teaching, it's the foundation of everything. There's lots of practices, lots of methods, lots of pathways that get us engaged into these methods of achieving awakening. But they're still all foundationally arising from these Four Noble Truths. So it's the basis, pretty much, of the whole path. It is the basis of the whole path, not pretty much. It is the basis of the whole path. And really having a good foundation here just sets us up to progress, to overcome some of these afflictions, to recognize our Buddha nature. So having said that, we'll get into this and we'll unpack the ways that the fundamental problem arises in our life, and that's that how I perceive reality does not accord with reality. And that's the whole problem. It'd be nice to accord with reality, and then we don't suffer. Things are much easier. So some of the things that sort of methods that'll be shared here, we have to remember in the context of monastic life and centuries of teachings and cultures. So we'll try to bring them to life in the way that we relate to it as best I can. So let's go ahead and get to the text. All right. So, Four Noble Truths, each with four attributes. First truth, the way that's being discussed here is the truth of dukkha. Often we hear truth of suffering, and that phrase doesn't quite capture it. Dukkha is this unsatisfactoriness. It's a contamination, basically, of our mind streams, our aggregates, the way that we perceive the world. And if we say suffering, it doesn't feel like I'm suffering when I'm sitting in my hot tub with, a little ginger beer and some cheese and snacks. It doesn't seem like suffering. But as we unpack this, we'll understand how its nature is dukkha, this nature of unsatisfactoriness, this nature of discontent, and even though at the moment it's quite pleasurable. So dukkha is much more, well, it's the Sanskrit for it, but it can't really translate very well to English. So we use suffering often. Some people use dis-ease, as in a disease, but dis-ease, like we're not ever just quite right there, like ongoing. There's even sometimes when we're feeling pretty good, we start wondering about how can I make it last? It's like, it feels good. How can I keep doing this? So, okay, well, we're going to unpack it a little bit and see what His Holiness 14th Dalai Lama and Venerable Thubten Chodron has to share here. So true dukkha is the polluted aggregates, okay, the five aggregates we've talked about that essentially constitute how we see ourselves, the form and the sensations and so forth. So they're all contaminated, they're polluted. And principally caused by afflictions and karma. Often you'll hear the word klesha and karma. So afflictions and karma. And so we have a lot of afflictions, and it's good to know. I mean, it's good to know we have afflictions, but it's good to know that when we're talking about sort of seeds of afflictions and seeds of karma, they're really two different things. Sometimes they can get conflated, and I noticed that at the retreat when talking to one of the students there. We can eradicate the seed of anger or the seed of resentment or the seed of grasping simply with wisdom, right? That what causes anger is I'm grasping to myself into a view that my happiness is rooted in this happening. Somebody's blocking that, I get angry. So that seed of anger is based in a misperception around the real source of my happiness or the importance of a particular event. If I didn't have that misperception about it, well, there wouldn't be any anger, right? Okay, we're doing this instead of doing that. No reason to get angry. The seeds of karma, though, don't get eradicated so easily. So karma, we have seeds of karma. Once karma is created, there'll be a result. And so we can purify karma, in which case it's kind of like we negate the capacity for karma to grow. It's kind of like sometimes they refer to it like burning the seed. You know, it's still there, but it's not going to do much. It won't continue to grow. It won't sprout in particular ways. I think of it as, limiting its potential to grow, to kind of stop it in its tracks. But there'll be some result. It just won't be as bad if it's a negative karma. So, so those seeds, they're a little bit different than the afflictions. The afflictions we can work with much easier in the sense of just bringing some wisdom to a moment. We can eradicate some of the causes. As soon as we start getting rid of the misunderstandings, some of the beliefs that we have that don't base in reality, and we work on that, then we're not going to have the affliction arise. So it's good to know that we can eradicate those. We talked on the recording that I made before the retreat was about the 4 types of cessations, and that's all to do with those afflictions. It's in the text here as well. So, but they're a little different. So karma and klesha, mental afflictions and karma. You can see at this rate, we're only 2 sentences in, we're not getting far. And remember online, if you have a question or a comment, just feel free to unmute and dive in. If you can bear with me just a moment, it may be that there's a message that came through. Oh, okay, I was just letting you know what page we're on. Okay, so let's dig in here. Okay, so we've got these polluted aggregates, these 5 aggregates, and they're principally caused by afflictions and karma. They include internal true dukkha, such as our polluted bodies and minds, and external true dukkha, such as our habitats and the things in it. So samsara is this environment we're living in, as well as how we're experiencing it with our minds and our bodies, how we're experiencing ourselves. The 4 attributes of true dukkha, and it's going to get unpacked to each one. First is impermanent. It's unsatisfactory, so nothing out there is really going to provide you the satisfaction that you are seeking. It's empty. So we see things as real, independent from their own side. And that's the way everyone sees it. And that's not the way things are. They're empty. I'm always perceiving it subjectively, right? And they'll break that down. But the simple way I always say is all of you are experiencing a different John, right? So you're kind of filling me in. I'm empty to you. You're filling me in. And selfless. So we have impermanence, dukkha, which is unsatisfactoriness, empty and selfless. So some of you who are in the mindful life program and so forth, we talk about 3 misperceptions. You know, we think of things as being permanent. We think we can find happiness in these events and things. And we perceive ourselves in a particular way, in a way we don't exist. Those are 3 misperceptions. That's kind of the marks of existence. And so they've added a little piece here just on emptiness in itself. And so whether we call it the 3 misperceptions or 3 marks of existence plus emptiness, yeah, which would work in the 4 seals as well. So now we're going to get into them, but we'll have a nice little quote here from a Buddhist text. So we can counteract these 4 distorted conceptions or conceptualizations, believing impermanent things to be permanent, things that are by nature unsatisfactory to be pleasurable, the unattractive to be attractive, and what lacks self to have one. So those are the misperceptions. And we can counteract these 4 distorted conceptions. The Buddha said in the distortions of the mind, perceiving permanence in the impermanent, perceiving pleasure in what is dukkha, perceiving a self in what is not self, and perceiving beauty in what is foul, beings resort to wrong views, and their minds deranged, their perception twisted. So this is explaining our human life. We're deranged and our perception is twisted. They just pat you right on the back just to get you going here. Such people are bound by the yoke of Mara and do not reach security from bondage. Beings continue in samsara, going repeatedly from birth to death. But when the Buddhas arise in the world and send forth a brilliant light, they reveal this teaching that leads to the stilling of dukkha. Hearing it, wise people regain their sanity. They see the impermanent as impermanent. And what is dukkha is dukkha. They see what is not self as not self and unattractive as unattractive. By acquiring right view, they overcome dukkha. In other words, just living in reality, seeing it more accurately. The 4 attributes of true dukkha counteract the 4 distorted conceptions. Understanding the first 2 attributes prepares us to realize the last 2, which are the main antidotes that bring true cessations. While our physical and mental aggregates are pinpointed as an example of true dukkha because they are the basis of designation of the self, the explanation pertains to everything conditioned by afflictions and karma, not just our bodies and our minds. So, pretty nice to know. It's nice how they set it up again, that we're understanding that the first 2, then we get to the solutions for the second 2 in a more cohesive way. So we'll get into impermanence here.
So just a quick question. And this, it's all pretty heady stuff, right? So But that comment, seeing what's unattractive is unattractive. That doesn't seem, that seems like that's labeling something rather than just seeing what things are like. Doesn't seem like anything's either attractive or unattractive. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I got it. I just want to see if everyone heard that, or do I need to repeat it? You guys were able to hear that. Okay, so seeing unattractive as unattractive might be like labeling something. But we're using words to experience reality. And what they're really saying, we'll get to it, is around attachment, right? This is the most beautiful thing. This person's the most beautiful person. And now we're attaching and filling in and labeling and creating, craving, and so forth. When recognizing that, and they're going to get into it in the third very deeply, in pretty graphic words, that there's really nothing to crave there. There's nothing to be attached to. There's nothing to see as attractive, which is different than being able to appreciate in a human conditions, what we perceive as beauty in a more realistic way. But it's really around how we exaggerate and crave, that attachment and so forth. Yeah, but we probably won't get to it tonight, but yeah, they're going to get very graphic on that topic. Like, why would you be attracted to a big old pus body filled with, vile stuff and bodily fluids and feces and muscles? And what's so attractive about that? Yeah, well, okay. It's covered with some skin now. But even that skin's going to get old, right? And, things are going to change but we could already, I think, even just in that regard, note in our culture how much suffering goes around trying to make a body beautiful or perceived to be beautiful, right? I mean, I don't even want to get into the whole hair care products deal, but think about how much mental afflictions, insecurities, attachments, sexual compulsions, activities are just caught up, having a body be a particular way, to have us feel a particular way, and how much damage gets done just in that whole thing, right? And that's just using the body. Yeah, a lot of damage. Okay, so let's take a look at impermanence. The physical and mental aggregates are impermanent because they undergo continuous momentary arising and disintegrating. Overwhelmed by ignorance, we apprehend transient things such as our bodies, relationships, and possessions as unchanging, stable, and enduring, and expect them to remain. To remain the same and always be there. We do not feel that we are going to die, at least not anytime soon. Believing that we are the same person we were yesterday, we expect our lives to be constant and predictable. We're surprised by a car accident or a sudden change in our conditions at work. As a result of holding on, I'm sorry, I just added a word there. As a result of holding what is impermanent to be permanent, we don't prepare for death or future lives by avoiding harmful actions and engaging in constructive ones. Telling ourselves we will practice Dharma later, when we have more time. We waste our precious human lives. Let's just pause on that for a moment, get into it a little bit. And for me, I think it's just so valuable to see how sneaky impermanence is. I mean, like, I think we can all intellectually kind of get, yeah, your body's changing, the town is changing. But boy, think about how we want it to not change. Think about how we try to keep things stable. Think about how we try to preserve our house, and our bodies. And Glenwood Springs, I think they just had a vote, or they had a vote to have a new way to approve different changes in the town. And it's about preserving the town in a particular way. And we kind of think, we take for granted our job will be here this way, or things will be that way. The pandemic woke us up a lot, right? I mean, we didn't quite see that coming. And how much even in your day, you kind of have a plan for the day, and that plan goes out the window. I got on the freeway today. I went earlier down to Glenwood, and I was going to just jump on the highway, get off next exit, and it was backed up, totally backed up. And things change. Things change. And even though the normal traffic flow would have gone. But yeah, there's a big rig accident. So, but my body's changing. My partner, Laura, is changing. Which, I mean, we made some vows. I think we need to stay the same, right? And my friends change, and people, pass away, and accidents happen. And actually, we're arising moment to moment. And the sneaky thing about impermanence, even in this way, is we can be very attached to a belief about ourselves from the past. And we strongly feel that's who we are today. And that can really limit us thinking about certain issues, that I have, that I'm, have that make me up, or defects in certain ways, and not realizing that I'm actually, continuing to grow and become in each moment. So impermanence gets really sneaky. We'll see what commentary they give, but even though intellectually we can grasp it, it's amazing how much we try to keep things permanent that aren't, and how much suffering that causes. Course impermanence is perceptible by our senses. The sun sets, a building is constructed, and later decays. Babies become adults and then die. All of these course changes happen due to subtle impermanence, changes occurring in each moment. These subtle changes are built into the nature of conditioned things. No external factor is necessary to make things arise and cease in each moment. It's going to happen. Arising is something new coming into existence. Abiding is the continuation of something similar. And ceasing is the disintegration of what was. You notice that abiding is the continuation of something similar. So I'm similar to who I was yesterday, but I'm not the same. I'm very similar. I could use a haircut, but yeah. Getting kind of hippie-ish here. Scraggly. I need a comb. So these three occur simultaneously: arising, abiding, and disintegration. Happening all the time. These three occur simultaneously in each moment. From the moment something arises, it is changing and ceasing. There is no way to halt this process or take a time out, regardless of how much anti-aging cream you buy. Okay. Because everything changes in each moment, there is no stability or security to be found in samsara. Understanding this gives us a more realistic view of life. This, in turn, helps us to release attachment to samsaric enjoyments and birth in samsara in general, and frees our mind to seek more reliable happiness that comes from Dharma practice. Yeah, so here we get to explore what is it that we engage in, that we really try not to change, try to keep it just so. How many, even our jobs, right? The conditions at our job, or our cars, or our relationships, or our friendships. And how much suffering comes when it changes. Our jobs change, the economy changes, gas prices change. That pandemic sure changed a few things. Everything's changing all the time. And how much suffering, stress, worry, and fear go into our lives trying to create stability in an unstable world. Think about how much stress, worry, and fear comes around trying to have that stability. And yet you can have stability in an unstable environment. There's some things that are pretty stable in the Dharma if we accord with reality. If I understand that things change, then, well, I can be fairly stable. I'm not going to get caught up when it does. One of the things that I find very, very foundational, very stable, very reliable is that I'm going to feel better about who I am when I do things I feel good about. I mean, that's just been proven to me. Pretty reliable. It won't be fun when I'm doing it, maybe, but doing something that I fundamentally feel good about, that it's honorable, it's ethical, I'm going to feel better about who I am having done that. That to me is pretty reliable. But it has to be done with that understanding. It's accurate, not I'm going to do the right thing, but I'm going to do it grudgingly. Or I'm going to do the right thing that I know is the right thing, but I want to impress somebody, or I don't want someone to think of me less than, and real subtle things. I remember in my early days, I used to go to recovery meetings and they'll pass a basket. Do it at church too. Catholic church, they got a big handle, shove it down. And I want to make sure people see me putting my money in the basket. It's the right thing, but my mind is caught up in affliction. And then I'd feel bad if, I didn't have, something with me at that time. Then I'm worried about what people think about me. And so those are just very simple, common afflictions that can happen. And we can have them even when we're actually want to do something good. But if I genuinely just, do something that is something I feel good about, I know it has meaning and purpose, and I do it for a reason that has that deeper understanding, meaning about its benefit and value in my life, well, then I'm going to feel pretty good about me. Better. Yeah. But how much of our life are we trying to seek stability and instability? And how much in our life are we trying to make things permanent that aren't permanent? And how much suffering do we have as a result? Keep thinking about Laura Sundasan, who grew up here in Carbondale. And he comes back to Carbondale and says, man, this is a busy place. I'm from LA, so I think in small town of Carbondale, not a busy place. But you grow up here and you go to, he's up in Gunnison, and then comparison, then just the way we want things to be a certain way or experiencing them different, and then we can't enjoy them as much, even how things change, how much we even resist some of the values the old time, always, the good old days, the good old days. And there's some big reminiscing about the good old days. because that's what I grew up in. So those were the good old days. You knucklehead kids, had no idea, you know. And how much, I may kind of miss something that was and totally not appreciate what is becoming. How much do I resist, what is becoming because I'm trying to preserve, what was. It can be really sneaky in our lives. Who knows? Maybe one day all of us will wear our pants low under our butt and get with the program. Yeah. I don't think I'm seeing it for me though. But and I look back at what I thought was fashionable in high school. Yeah, it was a little tricky. So things change. And then death happens, relationships come and go, friends come and go. Sometimes we can adapt to new friends. Sometimes, we just can't move on. But if we know that everything's changing and we're not grabbing onto it, trying to make it permanent, then there's a real potential to appreciate what I currently have in the way I have it and really appreciate everything that's coming together in this way without the claw marks on it, or locking it up or trying to preserve it. Just appreciating the new. I posted just a little while on my own little page this video that just really touched me. It moved me. It was this old guy, been married a long time, and he lost his wife, and he couldn't move on. It was hard. It was days were tough. Things were not good. I mean, he could barely function. Things were doom and gloom, and you could just see it in his face. And one day, this is a true story, and it's they did a whole news story on it. He's shopping in a grocery store, and this little girl in a cart. This little girl, said, "Hey, can you hug me? I want a hug." And he's like, "Me? You want me to hug you?" And yeah, like hug. And he hugged her and she hugged him. And it shifted him like in a whole new way. So much so, I mean, they became best friends. She would go visit, even though she had grandparents, she'd go to his house. There was this weird, just unusual bond between them. And like she had especially there's a picture of him with a picture of her with her it's like sleeping and with a big old photo of him, and she's sleeping next to that with her blankie. And so I just thought it was so moving that this old girl, I don't know what triggered her to do that and to how that connected. Eventually, he passed, but he was happy. His life brought new meaning. He was engaged in life, and and then I interviewed her later. She's in her teenage years, and what it meant to her to have that relationship. And so what spoke to me is how we can miss the new opportunities of becoming as we suffer from what we don't have anymore and how it once was. I'll probably post that video in our community. Because I mean, it's amazing. Nice little shift in what some little spark could do like that, to be hugged by a little girl. So anyone else have any ideas or ways that you might see impermanence and how they create suffering by our trying to preserve or make permanent that which is impermanent? Kurt?
Hi, John. Hi, everybody. So are they? So they're saying
Who's they?
Them. Uh,
Those Buddhists, are they saying?
those Buddhists are saying that 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 impermanence is the realization of impermanence is the antidote for true dukkha. I mean, it seems like to me that it seems to me like what they're saying one thing, which is, dukkha, this is a fact of samsara. We're in samsara. There's dukkha. It's going to be this way no matter what we do, unless we achieve enlightenment. Right? That's the only way out, or liberation, or whatever. There's other stuff, I guess, too. But and so are they just like, this makes it better? Is that what they're saying? That if we realize this, then we don't suffer as much? Or
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I don't even know what I'm trying to say exactly. It just seems like a little bit dark. That everything arises, everything's always, which I understand, and intellectually I can get it, and I do feel better when I behave ethically and all those things, but still, even that better feeling is still subject to exactly what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, your joy doesn't last either, does it?
No.
How much suffering goes into trying to make that last? And how much do we just spend energy in trying to shift an emotional state? I'm feeling not good or not happy, and I think, well, something's wrong. I need to change. Instead of, guess what? Being not happy is kind of a human thing.
But the flip side of it is that, like, knowing that things are impermanent is like hopeful.
Yeah, it's very hopeful.
So it's like pain is going to end.
Yep.
Or it's going to change. It could get worse, but it probably will get better. So that's kind of the essence of hope.
Yep. So the pain will end too. And but yeah, going back to Kurt, what's being said here is, so the main issue is dukkha. Dukkha has these 4 attributes. You counteract them by seeing things more, well, in reality. That's how we remove those afflictions. And so counteracting the misguided view of trying to make seeing things that are impermanent as permanent, the more you can see them as impermanent, you're going to counteract that affliction, that misperception, and you're going to suffer less. And through all 4, there's going to be a counteracting to these 4 ways that we primarily suffer. And what happens is it alleviates that suffering. But I think what sometimes when I hear you, I think that, like, we're not going to have any of this till we're enlightened. But that's a whole process. You're going to be happier on the way to enlightenment, right? You're going to be suffering less on the way to full awakening. You'll even have moments of clear seeing and sort of little moments of awakening that we can use this body and this mind and our lives in ways that we suffer much less, see more clearly, and the process unfolds. And after a while, we don't even think of things as permanent. And then there's no cause for the suffering arising from that misperception. Likewise, the next one, which is coming up, we're not going to even have the idea that the source of my lasting happiness is in that thing or that job or that event or, the wedding needing to be just so. You want to talk about affliction, plan a wedding. And then you're going to suffer less. Does that make sense, Kurt?
Yes, it does make sense. I don't know why my brain just drifts towards nihilism all the time. I think it's an affliction, right?
Yeah, but it's an impermanent one, so that's good.
It is good. I'm glad it's impermanent.
So, as you were talking about that, it made me think of a younger generation, 20s, teens and 20s, who are, I don't know, super anxious and concerned about climate change, and those, you know, they see impermanence as doom and gloom.
Yeah.
And so maybe they're trying to grasp onto making something permanent, like current conditions. Let's not get any worse than it is now.
Mhm.
And so the impermanence causes the stress and the affliction.
Yeah. And so, you know, climate change, right? You know, that's happening. You know, there's no, you know, am I fighting that in my mind, you know, is not going to solve it. Taking some steps to try to solve it might, but you could see where the fear can easily arise, right? And so there's not a lot of point in resisting reality. There is value in doing what we can to alter our circumstances. And that's meaningful, right? But when you think about, you know, can we get some people to wake up a little bit and shift this, you know, is that possible? Well, also what's hopeful around impermanence too is climate change is on a trajectory. But we don't know what things might come up, one new solution, or how the culture might shift, or, you know, when people are living in houses on stilts, that they might say, yeah, maybe this thing is real. And so we don't know what the future around that either. And I mean, if someone were to tell me when I was growing up that I'd have a flat computer in my pocket where I can video chat, and I didn't even have to get the Get Smart shoe phone. I skipped that whole stage. There's no way that you could tell me this little chip could transmit, you know, and do all this stuff, and we'd have satellites, and here we are on this computer, and people from, you know, different areas of the country are here simultaneously, and this is beaming to outer space and beaming to them, and they're sitting on a computer or a phone. There's no way that concept was in my mind. So I also don't know what might come up, right? But it's very reasonable that we should do something as quickly as possible, as fast as possible, right? Yeah. But the climate's always changing anyway, right? And maybe we can change it in a healthier way, but it's still changing. But there's a different view when we're trying to preserve life, right? But from a Buddhist perspective, this is all going to blow up anyway. So I was at when I was a monk, we were at the Western Buddhist Monastic Conference, and it was on climate change. You know, what should we do about it as monastics? And, you know, you get a whole bunch of monks and Theravadins and Tibetans and, you know, Chinese Pure Land, and, you know, all of us, and Zen. We even let the Zen people in. And we're all there, and you get a bunch of Buddhists to go like, this is all going to end. They go, yeah, of course. So like, you know, like they're not, they get it. You know, this earth came into existence. This earth's going to go out of existence. You know, there's eons of lifetimes. Things come together. They fall apart. Everything that we're experiencing, you know, is going to end. Like, you know, they're not shocked. So with that view, they're like, you know, is it our role to do anything? Because if you really look into what the Buddhist is saying, is how we're experiencing this world is just this world now experience. I mean, how many billions of other universes are there? How many other forms of life? How, what is it beyond this human body? This mind stream that is, much more than this human existence and this human earth that actually exists. And this is all really samsara. So that view, you can get very nihilistic, right? Well, then none of this matters. And yet it all matters. It actually makes it more important. Because for those beings that see themselves as human on planet Earth and in this way, it's providing us the most significant way to transform life. And that's by helping each other, especially in times of tragedy. That's where compassion arises. That's where wisdom arises. That's where we can see a much bigger picture if we use our minds wisely. But from a Buddhist perspective, yeah, this place is gonna not last. Our bodies aren't gonna last. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But if you're stuck in a human form, and now that it could be a very bad thing, right? So how do I help those people? How do I help this environment? How do I create conditions for a rare and precious human birth for all those generations yet to come? Well, that becomes very important work, but nothing to stress about, because it's the opportunity to use our lives in the most meaningful ways to help others. And because they don't see it my way, and they're struggling because of these afflictions, and they're also helping me help myself. So from that view, those are the people that roll up their sleeves, and we're gonna do our best here, and not worry about the result. It's worth my time. Yeah, but we could easily get caught up. I mean, I think about my grandkids. What world are they growing up in, right? Granted, they can order a snack on their phone and have it delivered to their door, which I didn't get. Just saying. But yeah, there's a great deal of benefit that comes from a lot of things that we also view as negative, right? For example, here we are using all this social media and technology, and we're having a Dharma teaching. 20 years ago, try to get a Buddhist Dharma teaching in English, pretty hard. Yeah, and we can actually chime into the talk by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And that's pretty amazing. There's lots of good to these things too that happen.
John,
Yes.
there's a smaller local example I've been thinking of, this crack in this steel bridge that they found coming into Gunnison. And, it's one of the only ways into town. So it's been a pretty big deal in town. But yeah, just what you're thinking of, like we witnessed a Zoom meeting the other night about it, and all the people that are coming together trying to figure it out, and all the different kind of mind streams that are coming into that. But some people are trying to figure out who to blame, and other people are trying to figure out how to help, and they're boating little kids across the water to get to school, and it's just been kind of amazing to watch all the people reacting, and a big part of it, I think, is like we see a steel bridge as something permanent that's not going to change, so it's just the shock of that, which, yeah, because of these teachings, I didn't feel like maybe I was quite as shocked by that, but what you're saying about people coming together and helping each other out through it instead of reacting and figuring out who to blame, and those kind of things has been interesting to watch.
Yeah, what a great example. For those of you, who don't know, go ahead. You muted, okay. Gunnison, this mountain town, one of the only ways in is these bridges over the Blue Mesa Reservoir, it's the main highway. Those bridges, one of them has some cracks. Yeah. So no way in that way. Kebler Pass snowed in, so that way's not happening. And you've got just Monarch, right? And didn't that even have an accident the other day or something? Got shut down. So you're an island out in the mountains. Yeah. Immediately, I think about the potential of a ferry service that someone can initiate. That'd be interesting. But yeah, coming together or blaming, which way do we look at it? Thank you for sharing that, Jessica. So this week, this will be the opportunity is start to notice where impermanence, the resistance to it, is showing up in your life. And see how many subtle ways that pops up. How much we resist change. There's a lot of psychology that says, most people don't like change. Most people are resistant to change. Except everything's always changing all the time. So it's kind of a weird statement. There are certain changes we're resistant to. Certain things we're resistant to. Other things not so much. But everything's changing all the time, including us. And then people, big changes in my life. But technically, there's changes all the time. And even good change can create stress. A lot of people don't realize that. Is, somebody gets moves to a new place, new job, new situation. But every aspect of their life is changing. It's all different. So now it's stressful because I'm still adapting. Even though it's good, it's still new. And I'm not sure how to do it yet. And so those change markers in our life of significant change can create stress. And so even very good things can do that to us. So if we can be, and this is the key, and this is what we tapped into last week, got very lively, is we don't want to go to nihilism, like none of this matters. But it's the same view. We need to know that all of this is impermanent. It's all dukkha. It's all suffering. It's not where we need to be. It's not anything to be attached to. And yet be very engaged with it. And so I, the label I come up with, my best framing is observer participant. I observe in this very observational mode of what's arising, what's going on, but I don't want to become disassociated. I want to be a participant. I want to maintain the view and be fully engaged in human life. I know I'm more than a human life, but I'm in a human life. I know that this stuff is filled with suffering, but I see the compassion and wonder in it. So that is this, we call it two truths. And it can be tricky because we can get pretty good at getting disassociated. Well, it doesn't, just have people die, blah, 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 which is one of the worst ways to live and will not help reduce suffering. It'll anesthetize people. And then we can be too attached, in which case we're all fused with it, and now we're suffering. And so the fine line, this balance, this way of being, is to be able to maintain the view, the perspective, and engage in the incredible opportunity of being human in this lifetime. Because this is the optimum place for you to even wake up. And it's only through interactions with others, through everything they do to support you, through our connection to them, our compassion with them, that can give rise to the qualities to wake up. So we don't want to waste that opportunity. So we get to feel feelings and not identify with them. And that's a tricky business, very tricky business. So generally it's kind of, we get a little too attached. Then we get a little too out. And then we get a little too attached, and we get a little too out. And, it's just a journey of letting go of some of that attachment, maintaining the view, and opening the heart. Always opening the heart, always softening the heart. And that's the journey that we get to engage in this rare and precious human birth favorable to Dharma practice. But catching ourselves at the sources of our suffering can counteract those. There I am making things permanent or permanent again. Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and dedicate the merit that we have cultivated this evening. That's my morning meditation comments just coming out. It could be morning. Who knows where you are? Or international. Yeah, let's just take a moment to be in this moment and reflect on the incredible gift and opportunity we have to have this rare and precious life, this time together, these teachings that have come through His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama, Venerable Thubten Chodron, all the other monks and geshes that help contribute to these teachings, all those who created conditions for teachings to remain, and all of our efforts. Let us collectively dedicate all of this merit and wisdom for the benefit of all sentient beings and for our own continued spiritual growth, that we may continue on this path of awakening in ways that are productive and meaningful for ourselves and others. For those who care to, you can join me in the dedication. By this merit may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. All right, well, thank you all so much. Such a joy to be with all of you. I'll try to remember to post that video of the old guy and the little girl. I got all fluffy around that.
Om Tare Tu Tare.